All right, Yossi, thanks for that amazing setup here. So this is all about innovation in advertising. And just a few minutes ago, Mark was nice enough to talk a little bit about what my company, New Air, is doing with the Magnum Ice Cream Project. And it's great to have the startup community out here being able to get access to these big brands. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But to my left, I've got Tal. Tal's an American-born Israeli entrepreneur. And his current product, AdExtend, is really I call it a WYSIWYG editor for creating digital content online, and then a network behind it to see how effective these are. Tell me about your vision for digital advertising and what you see the future to be.
Sure. First of all, AdExtend provides solution for a lot of online retailers, basically turning their visitors' behavior into insight, which is then utilized with ads, in order to engage customers and bring them back and increase sales. What I think is very interesting in this space is the access to data and how today there is a convergence between offline and online, and how one can take advantage of people's behavior, which is traditionally considered offline, but it's turning into an online because the purchasing activities are actually through digital means. And there is a huge opportunity in order for sites to increase their sales.
Cool. And next up is Karam, part of the, let's call it the established company space here. And you're head of digital with GlaxoSmithKline. And talk about how you, as a huge brand, interact with the startups, and what's your kind of vision for this digital?
So, I mean, our goal is to be always on and always relevant. I mean, that's our kind of digital goal. We're not going to achieve that in the traditional way in terms of working with media agencies or creative agencies. We obviously want to work with them. But there's this whole pace of advertising technology that is kind of revolutionizing how we engage with consumers. So we're very interested in engaging with the most innovative ad tech companies who can essentially help us drive a ROI in terms of when it comes to our media spend. But also how we can be a bit more engaging and non-intrusive. Because we're very good, the marketing model that has traditionally always been has kind of been an interruption media. It's kind of like, we're having a conversation and here's an ad. And it's like, well, with data now, you can really, really understand consumer insights, take signals from that, develop dynamic content and kind of spread that across any medium. That's kind of the vision of what we want to do. We're obviously not there yet, but I think over the next 5 years, there's going to be some massive transformations in advertising, because I think the whole planning and buying aspect of advertising is just going to become automated because of data.
Cool. So what the famous quote is, if I knew which half of my advertising budget didn't work, I wouldn't spend on it. With what you're looking for and what you're providing, it kind of completes that loop, so you know what is effective. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, we should talk.
Cool. So on that note, we've got Eric from Kantar. You've got 13 companies, 28,000 employees as part of this group and research to figure out what's effective, right? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, we're a global business, and we do everything for our corporate and our governmental clients, from helping them develop new products and innovating, to testing advertising, to really understanding what people will buy and why. I suppose a lot more of our work these days is focused on really understanding how people are consuming media and measuring that, and linking that to what people are actually purchasing and the links between those two things. And big data is obviously impacting and helping us in a huge way. So in all of that mix, we've moved a lot away from just survey research to incorporating facial coding, facial recognition, set-top box data, census data from millions of households. So changing the model as to what we do, incorporating social media into all of that. So a lot more that we can play with, and a lot more that we can now actually do to help our clients.
And can you get point of sale data? In the music industry, it was Scantron that would tell how many albums were actually bought from radio play. do you get that full circle of content?
Yeah, I mean, we get that through loyalty card data, through partners that we have, through credit card data. Everything is obviously very privacy compliant, and through panels which we set up around the world.
All right. So next up is Tal. Tal is a CTO of Innovid, which we heard a little presentation on earlier in this afternoon. Tal, you showed me this at Garage Geeks in like 2008 or so. So you've been plugging at this a while. Every startup takes about 5 years to get your footing. It seems like you got a strong footing now. Talk about what's going on.
Sure. So first of all, you all know what Innovid is because you heard the amazing presentation from Zach. We, as you said, for the past 7.5 years have been working on kind of bringing better capabilities and better creative elements into the television, the digital television world. So what we aspired 7 years ago is that marketers that are playing in the television space are practically demanding the user attention. You want to watch a free television show, please sit tight and watch this ad. What we are saying is that in this digital world, you need to reward the user attention and not demand it. And this is what we've been working very hard on doing. And many clients around the globe, including GSK, is one that are utilizing a lot of our technologies.
Good. And last but certainly not least, we have Mel with Group M, another huge agency. And your expertise is kind of varied there. But talking earlier, we discussed a lot of these campaigns go to Cannes Lions, and you've written a book that talks about mobile first. You've got another research report coming out as well. Talk about the shift of the eyeballs going to devices in our hand versus those on the big screen.
So I'm from MEC, which is one of the biggest most innovative and creative media communications agency in WPP. Yes, we are on a campaign with our clients and our own talent internally about really a mobile-first world. We did a piece at Cannes a couple of years ago called "The Only Way to Be Creative is to Be Mobile." It wasn't a book; it was a chapter, so I can't claim having written a book on mobile. But the focus we were trying to get to is everybody has a phone in the pocket. You know, in a country like India, there's less than probably 300 million people actually have laptops or desktops, but millions and millions have phones. So trying to find ways to engage scalably in the future means that you really need to understand mobile and engage with a mobile-first approach. That's pretty much in the BRICS countries becoming very accepted, and is only, I think, more in Western markets becoming more fundamental. I was in Canada last week, and we actually had a discussion around one of our clients. If we took the brief and approached it first through mobile, what would it look like? So I think it's beginning to happen, and we'll see much more of it going forward.
Yeah, so when you think about how television started, it was the Colgate-sponsored comedy hour, and Colgate was wrapped all throughout the program. Then you go into the traditional advertising model where you have the programming and a few minutes of adverts in between. And we talked about in your face, right? So Tal, talk about how you make that in your face more compelling and interactive. It'll come back up when you start talking. It's magical.
Okay. Ooh, magic. What we've, I'm sure you all experienced that it doesn't matter what brand it is, developed a lot of content that lives on their Facebook page, on a landing page, on many different places around the web. But so far, video or television is being kind of lived in a box, quote unquote, or stupid, whatever. That you have 30 seconds of flipping images, but that's it. You don't leverage any other of the interactive or engaging assets that is developed for any other outlets. And what we've been doing is allowing any marketers to leverage all those creative elements and bring them into the video. So for example, if a theatrical advertiser, Disney or Sony Pictures, is promoting a new movie, instead of asking the users to go to Guardians of the Galaxy, themovie.com, in order to see more content, you can actually bring that content into the video ad experience and let people that are interested lean forward and watch more content.
So Karam, with what you guys are doing, is that something that, do you want people to engage with CPG products and those types? What's your take on that?
So, I mean, if I look at it from a GSK standpoint, we've always kind of operated in a mass reach model, which is push, 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 25, 54-year-old women go by the media, and then let's hope something sticks. They think, and they go to the store, and they buy the product.
So you target the demo.
Yeah.
Then you find the programming, the content that matches that.
Exactly.
Right, and it's spray and pray model.
It's a spray and pray model, and that's kind of how advertising existed over the last 30 to 40 years. If you want to get to always on, always relevant, it's kind of looking at the mass niche model, which is how can I be when the consumer wants me to be there. So www is what I want when I want it from wherever I am.
Yep.
And that's kind of the goal. We're totally not there yet. We're obviously going to get there soon. But it's just a different way of looking at what advertising and innovation is, which is it more about being less intrusive with the consumer, trying to be wherever they are, or being there when the consumer actually wants you to be there, and he's actually pulling information about your brand or about your category, and that's where you need to engage instead of trying to be everywhere in every place.
Right. Yeah, so Mark touched on this on the last session with my project with Unilever. It was using a combination of iBeacon and then my New Era technology to not market to you when you walk by the ice cream cabinet. I think of beacons as having the potential of spam 2.0. I remember as an early adopter on the internet, you guys probably on this stage as well, when email was the best tool ever, and then spammers found that a zero cost to get in your inbox could derive some benefit to people clicking on those ads, right? So what Mark said on stage, what we did with that project is find out when your friend is nearby, connect you with your friend, and if there's a beacon on an ice cream cabinet nearby, then alert that a free ice cream is available. Now that worked well because Magnum had their 25th anniversary this summer when we launched. But Eric, let's talk about trust. I have a trust relationship with my phone. I only let it alert me when I get phone calls, when I get text messages. In fact, with Facebook, the reason why they separated Messenger from the main Facebook app is people turned off push notifications to Facebook. So by separating the app and installing a new app, I could then say, yes, I want to enable push notifications. So now I went in and turned off push notifications, and every time I launch Messenger, it warns me that I'm not getting the right experience. Do you follow trust and the beloved device that people have in their pocket? And when is too much too much?
And obviously this varies around the world because to Mel's point about mobile first, a lot more of our work in Africa, for example, is mobile first. And mobile is becoming the primary device through which we actually get feedback from people and conduct surveys, and that's a pretty big switch. So there are, and those are mostly feature phones, they're not smartphones. So there is a big difference between what we're experiencing in London Bridge and what someone in Africa is experiencing in terms of those things. But I mean, I think we all have the personal experience. If you get a kind of spam call on your mobile, that feels much more intrusive than getting a spam email. And that feels more intrusive than getting a spam call at home. And it is a personal device. I mean, it is something that when I get a call from someone that I don't want to get a call, or it comes up as unknown or whatever, that feels much more personal. So I do think we need to collectively find a way of not abusing that, because if we do abuse that, we're going to get into the situation that you talked about, which is everything goes into the spam box and people find a different way of actually using their phones, which prevents a lot of the stuff that we're talking about.
It's interesting too, in some markets, it's because of the cost of telephony, I believe it's India, people just call and they immediately hang up to see the missed call indicator. Have any of you followed this trend? And you've got, in America, projects, T-Mobile is doing it with music, where the data is free, and sponsored data programs. Have you run across any of this, Tal, with what you guys are doing?
It's a little different, but in our space. But I think, first of all, any form of innovative marketing has the potential of becoming a bit too much to bear. I just read an article equating retargeting to the new online bully. and in some sense, I think the problem is that we're extremely fascinated with KPIs and ROI and success metrics. And usually those metrics involved, CDR, clicks, obviously, conversions. But what they don't do is there is no look at the negative side of the campaign. So you look at how many people you've broadcast to or reached, and then how many actually took actions, but you don't take into consideration those that you did not activate and how it affected them. So there's the sort of the inverse of the success metrics, which is the fail metrics. And even today, most companies, especially, many of those we work with, it's not even on the radar. So it's still pretty much about how much am I spending, how much conversion am I getting, and how can you improve my cost per click or my cost per action, whereas the person should be asking, so if 1% engage with my ads, what happens with the 99 that don't? I think it will, this is something that's going to take place in the short future.
It's a really important point, and all of our work shows that if you target, you can get a bigger uplift in terms of whatever metric you want. But I think it'd be wrong for people to think that brand advertising, which isn't targeting, which is just reaching the mass of the population, doesn't have an effect. Yeah. And to Tal's point, I remember years ago, American Express, who was always one of the most sophisticated direct marketers around, always thought very carefully and tested their direct marketing material in terms of the impact that it was going to have on the brand, not for the 3% of people that were going to respond, but for the 97% of people who weren't going to respond. So I think we can get a bit too caught up. It clearly has an impact. Targeting clearly makes a big difference, but I don't think we should move away from also understanding that brands are built in a certain way and that brands do have an impact, and what people think about brands, even if they're not the purchasers at that point in time, actually makes a difference.
Interesting. Yeah, good. So Mel, let's talk about content length. We went from hour-long programming to the 28-minute format, now with mobile first. What is it bite-sized snacking that those millennials want today, or what's the future of content that drives this?
I think we're seeing very much a shift towards what I would call snackable and shareable content. Most scalably in the US, China is another big market for short-form content. And it's becoming less about being produced by major broadcasters and celebrities. It's user-generated or new celebrities that have been born on YouTube or new platforms, Vimeo, etc. So, and the consumption of content is growing. It's not slowing, it's growing overall, and that includes even TV, I think, is only just beginning to plateau this year in the US. So, but otherwise, the growth of content is just scaling. So the canvas for creativity is considerable for our businesses. It's being able to do it in a scalable way. So it's finding whether it's a long format, short format, photo format, text format, taking all of these opportunities and fitting that to the idea is really what the challenge is. But it's going to scale very fast, and areas like programmatic are going to scale very fast on that possibility as well.
It's all.
I must be the one that contradicts, because every panel needs someone like this. I must say that specifically on the television side, I don't know, I'm very bullish that content does matter, and the premium content will always stay as the vast majority of time that people are consuming on television. So there is a reason that House of Cards was successful on Netflix. There's a reason that a lot of other very successful shows are taking so much I don't know, share of voice, because I don't know, good quality content matters, and that means longer narratives, longer storylines, and television still takes the biggest amount of time. If I'm not mistaken, a little over 5 hours per day, average American watch television, and predominantly this is real full-length television.
Yeah, that's.
But sorry, no, I'm not contradicting you. Just to build, it's where they're watching it is different. It's the 3 Ws as you talked about. So they're actually consuming more television. It's how they're consuming it that's changing, and in the formats.
Yeah, there is a big debate that I don't have a good answer for it. But what is television? Is television the device itself, that 52-inch slim curved TV in my living room, or television is the type of content? Or television is the experience of sitting on the sofa with a bunch of people watching content on whatever device it is.
In 2006, I sat on stage with the CTO of HBO, and at the time I was doing Slingbox, which unbound your TV. It was before the tablets, it was the laptop era. And he sat on stage and argued with me that we were taking money out of his children's pockets because we were enabling kids at school to watch their parents' HBO and not pay for that second HBO subscription. And at the time, this was pre-YouTube, or YouTube was just getting coming around, and they had the takedown notices. So, and YouTube had that 10-minute limitation to prevent long-form content from going up there. Afterward, I had lunch with him, and he said, I just got to tell you, I love Slingbox. I'm thinking, why are you telling me this now when on stage you lambasted us for taking money out of your pockets? He said, we use them to test uplinks, downlinks. Our facilities are vast and spread all over the world, and we use Slingbox to monitor, and it saves us truck rolls and moving out. So now we have these news from HBO saying that in 2015, they're going to go direct to device, right? Is that, with HBO having, to your model of content is king, you pay for the content, really the only ads you see on HBO are ads for those other HBO programs. What's this going to do? Do you think HBO Online will have like a Hulu model?
I think it all depends on what will be the price point that they will come out with. And I think with the scale of HBO and subscription, I think they have about 128 million subs worldwide. Maybe subscription is still the model that will work well for them, like it is for Netflix. But the vast majority of television, broadcast television, it's still advertising is the predominant model. So I think there's, I don't know, different ways of going about it.
Mel, you've got something?
Well, I'd say Netflix, you know, if it's £5 a month, you'll spend that just to get Orange is the New Black next season. And I know people that have done that. They said, well, I'm not really worried about the rest of it. I just want that series. So it's premium content, but it's opening the door to, you know, broader opportunity and a much bigger business opportunity for Netflix.
But Netflix doesn't let you buy content on it for advertising, right?
I think they would. You know, Netflix is a big player in the online exchange business, so I don't think they're doing it. They're not just sitting on the exchanges for fun. It's something they explore, but it is interesting, in my opinion, that we're seeing now people subscribing to Netflix, Hulu. Now they're going to add HBO as a standalone, probably NBA League Pass. Followed by Showtime, and then someone smart is going to come in and going to say, hey, I'm going to bundle it all together for you. You're going to pay $80 a month, and you're going to get access to everything. And you know, it's we're going to go back and forth between the a la carte and the subscription.
Yeah, when Charlie Ergen launched Dish Network in America, you could a la carte. You could buy literally, if you wanted ESPN and HBO, you could buy those two channels. What he found out is the average revenue per user was like $8 a month. So it's very expensive to keep satellites in outer space when your customers are only paying that much. So that model quickly went away. But over the top gives you that kind of capability.
Web internet.
I think, you know, with all of the models in terms of non-ad funded Netflix, Amazon Prime, I mean, all of these guys, it's a totally different way of viewing video content. Like, I have a TV, it's a smart TV, and I don't subscribe to Sky anymore. I have Freeview, and I spend most of my time using Netflix or ITV On Demand, 4OD, and...
So you're a cable cutter is the term.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I just don't like ads anymore. I mean, I know I'm the global head of media for GSK, but it's kind of like, as a consumer, you just, like, you want to, when you get into something, you don't want to see the ad, right? And then when I speak to my cousins, they're like, well, we have ad blockers on when we surf online. So so you know, you've got ad blockers online, and people are blocking ads. You've got this new model, which is ad-free content that's delivered straight to your TV. It's like, okay, so then, like, how do you reach people, right? And this is where, you know, what I was saying in the beginning, which is, it's like, you've got to be there when they actually want you to be there. It's not to the point where the mass reach model isn't dead. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we've always focused everything kind of on the mass reach model, where we need to start thinking about, okay, there is a mass niche model where, as an advertiser, I'm more willing to engage and pay more of a premium to engage with these consumers because I know I'm going to have less wastage, right? And I'm going to be able to drive a higher conversion. And those are the type of consumers that you actually want to engage with more and more. You couldn't do that in the traditional model because you were essentially buying 25 to 35-year-old women.
I think one answer, just a quick answer, that one thing that we see a lot, at least in the US, is, or maybe even anywhere, is marketers starting to be content producers more and more, and producing ads that are full-on content pieces. And the kind of extreme example with GoPro or Red Bull or theatrical advertisers that are producing content that people will choose to see, even though it's definitely was created in order to promote a product, but it is first and foremost good content that I would love to see.
A good example would be Tyler jumping out of the rock or the capsule from space, right? GoPro, Red Bull were wrapped all over that. So we were in the last handful of minutes here. If we have some questions, if someone wants to raise their hand and get to the mic, but I want to do one last conversation here. I used to ask people what kind of wearables they used, but with my SDK, I'm doing a couple things. I'm using a Raspberry Pi to collect all the data that you guys are pushing out right now, so thank you for that. And I also see a couple tiles in the audience. I see a Misfit Shine, I see a Fitbit. So I'm collecting this data, and I think marketers will too. Eric, talk about wearables and what you see this idea of a persistent identity and how people will be maybe marketed to from their Pebble Watch as they walk through a store, or the iWatch that's upcoming.
I think it's not just marketing too, it's just a much deeper understanding of them. So we have some projects going, in fact one with GSK where we're partnering with a company called TickTrack. So we're doing survey research and also collecting people's health information as part of that project. So we understand what they're saying to us, but we understand that in the context of their health behavior and the things that are affecting them. And if you project forward and you think about every product that we have being able to emit data in terms of it's in your fridge or it's on the shelf, or so the amount of knowledge, data, insights that we're going to be able to glean as to how people are consuming and where they're consuming and what they're picking up and what they're putting down, and them as individuals. I think that's the really exciting bit. I mean, mobile is fantastic, but in terms of the Internet of Things, it's going to give us a completely different scale understanding of the individuals and what they're consuming and where they're consuming it. And then our job is to then collect that and add the why to it. We'll never be able to get the why out of all of those things. We'll need to infer the why, we'll need to ask about the why, we'll need to fuse data to get to the why. But in terms of understanding the what, our understanding is going to explode over the next few years.
So Karam, Marissa Mayer very famously shut down Google Health because it could be a little bit too creepy if we, at Google scale, could collect all that data. Recently, part of their Google X, they have a contact lens that can monitor the blood sugar for glucose. Are Google Contacts the new Google Glass? And what do you see with
So I think in the next 5 years, we're all going to have some sort of a sensor on our body, whether that be a wearable like this, or maybe I've got some sensors in my 501s or in my shoes, but there'll be some sort of a sensor that is emitting data. And that data is, so from a healthcare company, if you think about it, it's kind of like, I have now in real time all of this health information about me. Usually, I had to go to the doctor to get that health information. And when I go to the doctor, I'm looking for a cure. So now I have all of this health information about me. So instead of looking for a cure of illnesses, I can actually start to pattern out what sort of activities that I do that give me a blood spike or a headache or whatever. And all of a sudden, you're actually actively managing prevention. And that's very exciting for GSK because it gives us information about the user that we didn't really necessarily have. But also, imagine if you could actually start tying your health data to the type of advertising that you should be consuming. So I'm a diabetic. I'm not a diabetic, but just say, like, if you're a diabetic, all of a sudden, all of the ads that you start to receive are ads that are going to make you improve your diabetes or take you away from being a diabetic. So it's a different type of ad model because you could actually start using health data as kind of the first filter before you get the ad.
And maybe it shows up on my wearable.
And it shows up on your wearable or
Yep.
whatever. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. I mean, it's a very interesting time to be in this space, especially with sensory technology and the Internet of Things.
Cool. So as long as the content doesn't give me ad fatigue, I know when Hulu first launched and a lot of these ad networks, you'd see the same ad over and over and over again, which gets monotonous. Any questions? I think we're out of time here. If we have one, we could squeeze you in. I heard a voice of God. No? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, panel.